Gears 5 has truly risen like a phoenix, if you will, above and beyond the realm of simply good games. I think it's a piece of art, actually. This game is pretty much perfect. I also found 0 bugs. I'm not joking, 0 bugs during my 15 hours campaign playthrough. Hey everyone, I'm Thyworm and today I want to give you my thoughts on Gears of War 5. And they're going to be happy, good thoughts, because I can't think of a single thing in this game I didn't like. Apart from maybe the multiplayer monetization, but I'm not really getting into that because this video is primarily about the campaign. Gears 5 is one of those games that delivers in multiple areas. It has the power to completely immerse you into the world of Sarah, to have you care about the protagonists and make tough choices, to have you in awe about the views and the scenery, and to be part of a very compelling story. I haven't got much experience with Gears of War myself. I played the original and that is about it, just so you know where I'm coming from. This game, Gears 5, I'm playing on PC, all settings are cranked up completely, and I want to thank the developers who were kind enough to send me a review key. There won't be any big spoilers, by the way. I'll set the scenery a little and tell about storytelling, but that's about it. Gears offers a very convenient amount of background stories, which you can watch if you're new from the extras menu. It tells the tale of how the Locust Horde and the Swarm emerged as enemies of the Coalition of Ordered Governments, the COG. Characters are introduced and their drivers explained. And now the story continues, in this case with JD, the son of Marcus Phoenix, who starts with a bootcamp which serves as a tutorial. You'll learn the basics by molesting a bunch of robots, and before you know it, your first mission starts. You're on the lookout for a satellite, for the Hammer of Dawn, a super weapon that works pretty much like the Death Star from Star Wars. You'll descend into this colorful cave to find this particular satellite. You encounter a bunch of Swarm which shouldn't be there to begin with, and by moving through tight corridors, slaying some more monsters, receiving some backup, and by moving through stunning scenery, you try to reach your destination. Why you would need such a weapon, what it can do exactly, and who would like to have access to it is something I won't reveal in this video. The narrative is told using various storytelling techniques. First, you're just playing the characters and they are experiencing events as you go. You enter a new location and your squad mates talk about it, for example. They share their previous experiences, they ask advice from headquarters. It's all very logical and natural. Second, there are some amazingly cinematic cutscenes that further progress the plot. Quite some cinematics are simply using the in-game engine, which looks fabulous by the way, but for major plot twists there are some awesome cinematics to enjoy. Third, by using items. When exploring the levels and environments, you find all these small collectible items which reveal certain types of information. This is how I got to know a lot of history on the Hammer of Dawn, for example, how it was constructed, what it had done in the past, and what consequent events happened afterwards. After use of the weapon, a rebel group emerged with a big grudge against the Prime Minister of the COG, is what you learned, for example. This rebel group has a connection again with one of the main characters, which otherwise wouldn't be explained in the main story. All these small snippets of information provide a lot of context about characters, history, and sometimes the enemies as well. They're fascinating to read and really incentivize you to explore and see what collectibles can be found. Fourth and last, through your own company. In Gears 5, you're not always playing with the same protagonist. Somewhat later in the game, the perspectives change. By communicating with your squad mates, you'll learn about other characters too. They're gossiping basically, which is a really interesting way of storytelling that I don't see all that often, especially because these dialogue lines are very well written. Apart from the main story, there are a lot of side missions that are intertwined with the main story. They're not just random events that are detached completely, like you see so often, kill 12 boars, that kind of thing. Gears 5 has a side quest, for example, that has you go looking for 2 outcasts after they fled their settlement. You will find random notes on their whereabouts, but this isn't a standalone side quest, because later in the main story you visit this settlement and their tribe leader, and he's not really a nice guy to begin with. The situation inside the settlement is rather depressing as well, so you begin to understand why these 2 people are running away from the relative safety of the settlement. All these side quests have a clear connection to the main storyline, which doesn't give them this typical side quest feeling, but actually stimulates you to go out and do the side quest. Also because they're very rewarding, but I'll get to that in a bit. Part of the reason why Gears 5 really transcends your typical action shooter with a decent story is the quality of the level design and the fidelity of the sound. Everything, and I mean everything, in this game looks absolutely stunning, provided you have the gear to run it. Whether you're wading through twisted laboratories, moving through a blizzard, or just enjoying the view because this game is so pretty at times, every scene breathes with atmosphere. Every location has a tremendous amount of detail, and quite often this game reminded me of the movie Prometheus. Majestic, cinematic, beautiful imagery. Just look at the colors used in this scene. I love how the grey and red tones of the environment are contrasting with the small blue lights on your suit and weapons. Each environment and world has a different, distinct look. Not only because of the level design, but also because of the colors being used in those levels. It's a small detail perhaps, but it shows a tremendous amount of craftsmanship and adds to the cinematic feeling with professional color grading. There have been many times during the playthrough that I just stopped to have a look around, to just appreciate how well the lighting was done in an internal location, how creepy or gross some of the buildings were. It's mind-blowing really, and this game sometimes feels like you're on the set of some giant science fiction blockbuster movie. In terms of sound and battle music, let me just play a clip of an early mission so you have some idea on what to expect.
Ignition, engine 2.
No, it's not!
Hey, Paul! Shit, another gap! How many engines does this movie have? Usually, 4!
Ignition, engine 4.
Gears 5 is intense, in both combat situations but also various other sequences where you're either running away, trying to survive in the cold, or traversing a bloody apocalypse in the form of this insane firestorm with lightning, whirlwinds and fire everywhere. It's a total mess, but it's so fulfilling to get safely to the other side. Many times when I was in situations like these, I literally sighed of relief after it was done, just leaning back in the chair for a bit because you made it. Not because it's difficult, although it can be if you crank up the difficulty, but because it's so intense, so demanding. You're focused on completing the sequence and afterwards you feel accomplished but also relieved. Combat in general feels very solid. The sound of the guns makes them feel meaty and impactful. The aiming worked well with mouse and keyboard. The cover system I already liked in the first game, and here it still roughly works the same way. You have a small armory at your disposal, carrying 2 main weapons, a sidearm and up to 4 grenades. All these elements provide a very satisfying experience, whether you're taking down Locust, Swarm or some hideous abominations that can take multiple minutes to kill. There's also no lack in enemy variety. You're fighting at various locations and the combat never bored me for a second. A small feature during combat that I really enjoyed was the reload mechanic. This may have existed in previous games, I wouldn't know, but whenever you reload, there's this bar in the top right corner. If you press the reload button at the right time, you reload much faster and get a temporary buff. If you fail, your weapon jams. During these action-packed combat scenes, reloading really becomes a conscious moment, and ammo management is essential, especially on higher difficulties. Every reload requires your attention, requires a small moment of concentration, pulls you out of the fight for just a second, and I felt this was a well-implemented small game mechanic that makes combat a little bit more interesting. The developers chose not to include any RPG elements into this game, especially not when it comes to progression. I very often feel that added skills and passive abilities are just distracting, and I was glad to see Gears 5 has nothing like this. It knows what it's good at and rightly analyzed that RPG elements were not necessary, apart from one exception. That's Jack, this cute little robot that follows you around. He has a progression system in place. By exploring the world, you find these components that can be used to upgrade Jack. It also makes perfect sense, of course. He gets stealthier, does more damage, he can learn new abilities, things like that. By completing side missions, Jack gains access to the ultimate versions of these abilities, and those have a very big impact on his usefulness on the battlefield. Jack can freeze enemies, for example, using an ultimate upgrade, allowing you to shatter them with gunfire from a distance. It's another reason to divert from the main story and do some side quests. Because this review is focusing on the fabulous campaign experience, which you can also play co-op by the way, I'm not really going to cover the multiplayer here in this video. I hope you have a good idea about why this game is so fulfilling, about why I think it offers much more than just a good game, about why I really loved playing every minute of this game. That is such a rare occurrence for me these days that I wanted to share my views about it. I'd love to hear yours. Did you find it as good as well? Let me know. Gears 5 is the best game I've played this year. I can recommend anyone to have a go at the campaign. If you enjoyed this review, maybe subscribe. Thanks for watching and making it to the end. Bye bye.